Why is there so much suffering in the world? If there's a good and powerful God out there, then why does evil even exist? This is one of the oldest, heaviest questions in all of human history. Philosophers, theologians, pretty much everyone has grappled with this for centuries. So today, we're going to try and unpack the very core of this problem.
I think this is a really profound place to start. What Solzhenitsyn is saying here is pretty powerful. He's framing this whole problem not as something that's just out there, but as something deeply personal, something inside every single one of us. It suggests that the capacity for both good and evil, well, it's just part of being human.
But of course, that's only half the story, isn't it? We can't just ignore the incredible amount of suffering that seems to come from way outside of us, on a massive global scale. And that's where the question gets even bigger and a lot more complicated.
So to really get our heads around this, we have to ground this philosophical question in the world we actually live in. Because pain, destruction, and death, they aren't just ideas. They're all around us, every single day. I mean, just take a look at this snapshot. Millions of people forced from their homes by war, the absolute horror of human trafficking, widespread famine, the looming threat of climate change. These aren't abstract concepts. They are real, catastrophic events causing just immense suffering. And the sheer scale of it all could feel totally overwhelming. It forces you to ask that question, why?
So before we can even begin to answer the why, we really have to get clear on the what. What do we actually mean when we use a word like evil? It's a word we throw around all the time, but as you're about to see, it is surprisingly hard to pin down.
What's really interesting here is this comparison. Trying to define evil is a little bit like trying to define love. Think about it. We use the word love in so many ways. We say we love our family, but then we also say we love spaghetti. There's not one single definition that perfectly covers all of those uses, right? Well, evil is kind of the same way. We get it, we understand it in context, even if a single one-size-fits-all definition is out of reach.
So, just so we're all on the same page for the rest of this, let's use a broad, working definition. Let's think of evil as a big umbrella term for basically everything harmful and destructive we see in the world, from huge disasters to small acts of cruelty.
Okay, so how do we bring some order to this huge concept? Well, philosophers and theologians make a really crucial distinction. They break evil down into two main categories, and this is a key tool for understanding the whole problem.
Let's start with our really heartbreaking case. Back in 1991, an 11-year-old girl named J.C. Dugard was abducted and held captive for 18 years. I mean, the abuse she suffered is just unimaginable. This horrific event was the direct result of choices and actions made by other people. There was intent behind the harm.
Now, let's think about a completely different kind of tragedy, the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. This was a catastrophic natural disaster. It killed hundreds of thousands of people, left over 1 million homeless. But unlike J.C. Dugard's abduction, there was no person to blame here, no malicious intent. This was suffering caused by the planet itself.
So you see the difference. That first category, what happened to J.C. Dugard, we call that moral evil. This is any evil that comes from the free will and intention of a person who we can hold morally responsible. So think of things like genocide, torture, theft. These are evils that humans do to other humans.
And that second category, what we saw with the Haiti earthquake, is what we call natural evil. This is evil that comes from natural events, things like floods, famines, diseases, and other disasters. There's no person behind it. It's just the way the world works.
Okay, so we've defined evil, and we've split it into two types. Now we need to bring in the other side of this whole equation, the specific idea of God that turns the existence of all this evil into such a massive philosophical problem. In traditional theism, we're talking Judaism, Christianity, Islam, God is understood to have a very specific set of qualities. God is the creator of everything, sure. But for our question, what's really crucial is that God is considered to be omnipotent, meaning all-powerful, omniscient, meaning all-knowing, and omnibenevolent, meaning perfectly good and all-loving. You've got to remember these three omni words. They are at the absolute heart of this whole conflict.
And this is where it all comes to a head. On one hand, you have a world absolutely filled with both moral and natural evil. On the other hand, you have this idea of a God who is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good. Do you see the clash? This is the great contradiction.
This slide lays out what philosophers call the logical problem of evil, and it's a really simple three-step argument. Let's walk through it. Step 1.
An all-good God would want to get rid of evil, and an all-powerful God would be able to. So if a God like that exists, there shouldn't be any evil. Makes sense, right? Step 2. But evil very much exists. We've just seen how much. Step 3. Therefore, the logical conclusion seems to be that the God of traditional theism just doesn't exist. The presence of evil seems to be a direct contradiction to the existence of that kind of God.
And this is not some new problem. The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus laid it out with devastating clarity thousands of years ago. Is God willing to stop evil, but he can't? Well, then he's not all-powerful. Is he able to, but just not willing? Well, then he isn't good. But if he's both able and willing, then where in the world does all this evil come from? And that is the question that has echoed through the centuries, leaving us all to wonder.